You shouldn't let costs discourage you, but you should let it guide you. Funding is essentially the money that's allocated from different sources is going to pay for your education. So we just broadly call it funding. And it's going to pay for your health insurance as a graduate student, or it can pay for your health insurance, your tuition, your graduate fees, even travel sometimes for research and conferences, and even room and board. And it can even it can even just pay you as a research stipend or as a stipend. And so it'll actually just pay you as if you're working, but they're really paying you to do your research. And this funding can come through from many different sources. It can be financial aid that you can qualify for. It can be scholarships and fellowships, which is most likely what it will be. And most of these you're going to apply to. And you can apply to these while you're applying so that when you are accepted, you already have fellowships and scholarships ready for you. And I highly recommend that you do that. And we'll get into that a little more. Of course, it can also be loans. Those are available to you as a student and for different, under different criteria. And essentially what this is a funding package or funding packages, really, depending on what kind of program you're doing. And that is something that you will have clarity about once you're accepted to a program. They will tell you, hey, by the way, this is how much you're expected to pay. This is how much we can offer you and all of that. So that leads me to the next slide. You shouldn't let costs discourage you, in my opinion, from pursuing graduate school, but you should absolutely let it guide you. And that is because there are so many programs and degrees out there. I had a dream of being at UC Berkeley, and I didn't want to let that go. I wanted to be there. I needed to be there because I was from the Bay Area, and that's where I wanted to be. But when I finally let that go and just asked myself, okay, what is it that I want? Why do I want this degree? And where else can I receive that experience? I realized that, well, there's the whole UC system, and I'm actually quite interested in a lot of them. And so I was able to branch out. And maybe that's the case for you. Maybe you're really set on Harvard's MBA program. And I'm not saying you shouldn't apply, but just know that if you're not accepted, and if in the odd chance they don't have funding that is realistic for you, is there somewhere else where you can get that same kind of degree, training, exposure, and essentially still go on to do what it is that you want to do? It's an important question to ask yourself so that the idea of cost doesn't seem so much like something you can't get around. So as you're searching for programs, you should consider cost as a guiding factor. That's something that I would recommend to factor in when you're deciding if a program is ideal for you, if you're even going to apply. Don't let it be an afterthought just because it's hard to think about or because it feels overwhelming. Push yourself to dive into it and really look into what the likelihood of receiving full or partial funding is for that program or for each program that you're applying to. And then consider the possibilities of what you would do in the case of not getting the most ideal funding package, not getting the fellowships you're applying to. Is it feasible for you to take out loans for part of your degree? Does that program offer TA-ships so that you can be a TA and it will cover your tuition? What would be your plan? Even emergency funds. If you needed to take out loans, how much are you willing to take out? And what would that mean for you 10, 20 years down the line, depending on the career you're interested in? These are hard questions, honestly, because it does sometimes mean that you might have to make difficult changes in your approach to graduate school, or changes that feel really hard because you're letting go of something you really want. But they're important to keep in mind as you're applying and as you are seeking out resources and asking for support, basically anywhere possible. You don't want to leave any stone unturned. And I can tell you that from observing other students who have come in to their PhD program with external grants that they have already allocated, that they knew were available. So that is why we want to develop a strategy before we even start applying or as we're applying. And then the next point here is to know some strategies to negotiate funding, and that comes a little later once you're accepted. It's essential that you know how much that program that you're applying to is going to cost. And that is an answer that you can get before you're accepted. Some programs are explicit about the cost, and that'll probably be on their financial aid website, attached to the university website. Even the registrar, they might have those resources. The graduate handbook might even have those resources, or otherwise admission pages for the university and the program. And also remember that you do have to factor in your cost of living. So if you're moving to a new city or even a new state or country, considering what that is, your everyday life, your transportation, will you be able to live on campus, or will you be driving or taking a bus, your housing, and other expenses of just life in general? So that is really important for you to factor in and calculate. And I do recommend speaking to a real person, a real human about that, calling the university and speaking to someone. All right, so finding funding and taking calculated risks is kind of what graduate school is. I feel like I would be lying to you if I wasn't honest that I see graduate school as a huge calculated risk. I mean, you're putting in the work, you're hoping that what you need is going to be available, you're hoping that you're going to get funding each year, and you're hoping that you're going to get a great job after, or the career that you're looking for, even if that's entrepreneurship, is going to be available for you. And finding funding is a part of that too. So it's important for you to calculate those costs, like I had mentioned previously, and then know the risks associated and the aid possibilities for each program. So risks might be, this program does offer TA-ships, but they're not a guarantee. That's a risk because you do not know what undergraduate enrollment will be in the area in which you are capable of TAing in. Now, if a program says we guarantee you a TA-ship, we guarantee it for all our graduate students, that's a different risk, or at least the degree of that risk is much different. So this is when I would recommend to speak directly to graduate program advisors as you're doing this work. Obviously, don't expect them to do this work for you, but once you've kind of got an idea based on your research from websites, from the financial aid office, even speaking to someone at the registrar office, that is a great time to reach out to the graduate program advisor. These are staff members that work in each program, and they handle all of the logistics and, registration and forms. And they usually have a good idea of what funding packages are like and what those opportunities are like in the program you're applying to, or they can point you in the right direction because, again, every institution is different. So every program differs, and funding can even fluctuate per year.